Okay, welcome. This is Myodynamics 2, week 3. We're ready here. I'm going to quickly check if there's any questions. Claude, you have a question. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I did everything like you. I watched the video and I did everything like you said. But for some reason, when I emit the particles, it's coming out along the axis, but it's not pushing out in a straight stream the way you did it last week. For some
Okay,
reason,
we'll take a look at that.
it's making that spin. Um, around the I forgot what it was called, but you told -10 for the spinning around the torrent, the particles, and a -100 for going straight down. But for some reason, no matter how much I lower the upper value, it still doesn't
Okay.
push the steam all the way straight.
Okay. Well, I mean, we could. Well, we can. I'll take a. I'm continuing actually. Let me start sharing my screen first, and I'll have the scene in the same state where I left it on my previous class. Let's see if there's anything missing. If you can open your Steam file on your end, okay, and let's take a look or kind of go with me here and see if there's any values that are different. The only, usually, you need to make sure that the speed method is set to add at least, and then those values will reveal. So I don't, take a look at what I have here. So it's a long axis, -100, around to -10. The direction doesn't matter in this case. So if you're using the same numbers and this thing is still not working, then let's see what else can be. I don't know. I mean, we could try to share your screen at the end of the class and see what's happening in yours. To see why it looks different.
Okay.
It doesn't do. Then you're saying that it doesn't do this kind of stuff that is happening on mine right now.
It just doesn't push straight out. It
Oh,
pushes
look,
outward,
like this,
but it doesn't push straight out.
like this.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this could be due to turbulence or due to the swirl. We'll see what else. We're gonna keep talking about this thing today. So let's see if any changes that I make next, we'll fix it, and we'll go from
Okay.
there. Yeah. All right. But any other questions, guys? We always I like to do this thing first because I know all of you are working on stuff. So I only see hellos. So type your questions in there, or like Claude is doing, just use your mic. But yeah, we need to try to keep a bit of consistency. So I will get to all your questions, but there are questions about rendering and texture emission. I know, for example, Diamond is helping a lot with comments. But one thing that he didn't keep in mind is that he finished the course already, so he knows everything I'm going to be saying for the next 9 weeks or something. And he went in and gave advice of things that we haven't talked about. So there are questions about this thing. So it's getting a bit of out of sync. Everybody's doing something different. So I'm going to try to quickly. No, we're gonna get there. Just be patient for a minute. So let's see. If I don't see any questions in here, Dario, you're typing something. Let's see what else you have saying here. Keith, I think I saw something from you that you're doing rendering already. So I'm gonna actually start talking about rendering right now. Hopefully, I can help you with the questions that you had. But I am aware of everybody. Don't worry. It's not like I'm not. I do go to the community. But sometimes I see that you guys posted something and there's like 9 comments, between Diamond and you guys. So I don't want to, I wouldn't be able to say probably anything different than what you're saying. So there's not much point of me being there. What is exactly the motion streak? You're really confused with that. No problem. That's perfect. I'm glad that you asked me that because I don't think I talked about that last week. So keep typing questions. I'm going to jump in here. My head is everywhere. So I want to make sure that I am. This is fine. I'm sharing my screen, right? Yeah, and I'm recording this. Perfect. Just wouldn't want to go through the class and then realize that I did something off. Okay, perfect. So we're in exactly the same place as we were last week. A few things that let's go ahead and keep moving forward. So I don't recall exactly where I stopped, but I know what I need to do next. So, oh my God. Just try to hide these things a little bit. There we go. So let me just I don't know. These things annoy me. Okay, perfect. Okay, all right. So let's see. we have the emitter. We talked about this thing, but the first question that you have, Daryl, is about the motion streak. All right. So I'm gonna probably turn it off and see what you can get from this. Basically, motion streak. Okay, if the emitter itself is traveling, and I think the best example, I wouldn't open a new scene file for this, but the best example that I could give you is, and you can try it at home. You can really see the effect of the motion streak happening. Is doing a bit of a missile trail. Okay, so for the hell of it, let's just go ahead and do it. I'm going to turn off the engine, the emitter, okay, of the engine. I'm just not going to emit anything. Probably I'm going to turn off this emitter. I'm going to make another emitter here for this container. So I'm going to add a content. I'm going to just do an emitter. And I'm going to use probably, it is a volume. Let's just see what I'm getting here. Okay, so this cube. I'm going to put that guy, of course, he has to live inside the container for this thing to work. And I'm going to animate this guy flying, okay, along this thing. So I'm going to have him in there. We do an animation key here, and let's do, 40 frames. He will travel all that distance and get out of this container through there. So technically, I want to scrub, so I'm going to always, every time you want to scrub animation, it's better to disable your fluid. So perfect. So this emitter is just doing that. Okay. It is connected to the fluid. Now I can go ahead and evaluate this thing. And this emitter doesn't have motion streak turned on by default. I'm going to double check, but it shouldn't. The default behavior is to have it off. Perfect. We don't need heat. Okay, we don't need fuel. And I'm going to emit quite a bit of density so you can see it. Okay, perfect. 3. And then you hit play on this. I'm going to hide the polygon so we can focus only on the fluid itself. And you hit play. And I don't see much. Actually, nothing at all. I want to make sure that this thing is actually working. Is my fluid even... Let me make sure that my fluid is enabled. Yeah, it is enabled. So I'm going to crank up this value. Okay, value of 30, see if that's something for me. Okay, nothing. Okay, I want to make sure that, let me see, Y is not evaluating anything. I'm displaying dynamics, I'm displaying fluids, that's fine. Okay, and I'm going to double check the connection of this emitter. So you can connect and disconnect the emitters from a fluid container just using the dynamic relationships. So that one is not connected, so there you go. I thought it was connected. So now it is. So now it should work. And actually we're going to have so much density now probably that it's insane. No, there you go. There we go. That's a perfect example. So here we go. You get that. You see what I mean? You get dot, okay? You get emission, empty, emission, empty, emission, empty, okay? This dotted line. And that always is the missile trail issue. Every time you're going to do a missile trail, you have this problem. Is because what happens here is the gap in between the emission is due to that is just evaluating. For example, this is frame 5 and this is frame 6, and in between that, okay, in those two evaluations, if you're not using substeps, okay, to evaluate subframes, basically Maya will evaluate frame 5 and emit density, and by frame 6 it has passed through so many voxels that you get this empty space and you get your next evaluation. So motion streak is going to help interpolate this information a bit better. So if you grab it and just turn it on, that's what I say. The rule of thumb is every time your emitter itself is moving through space, through the container, turn that thing on, because even if it's moving a little bit slower, you're going to get a nicer trail. So remember this, okay? Take a mental picture of this, and look at it again, and you can see the difference, right? So it's not perfect, but it definitely is the much better thing. Okay, so Maya will try to see account for that motion, okay, and fill in the empty spaces as best as it can. Yes, if it's moving super fast, then you have to combine this with substeps, okay, later on. It's not the case for our engine, but it will be the case if you're doing a jet or something. Depends. Okay, sometimes we, depending on the shot, you wouldn't probably do, if it's a missile that is flying for a long time, you wouldn't do a massive container. You will find, constrain the container to the missile. There are techniques around it, but as fast as I could, I think this illustrates what the motion streak does. Is that okay, Dario? Is that clear? Yeah, perfect. Okay, I'm good. Something else is coming in there. Let me just. I just want to make sure you guys here in the live session are happy. So, and everything is clear. I don't know if I think I said, but next week for the recording. Okay, so next week we're gonna take it off. Next week is Easter, if I'm not mistaken. So why don't we take a week off and and be with our families, and we'll reconvene on the Saturday after that, which is Saturday the 6th. Okay, April 6th. So the next weekend you're off and have fun and work on the assignment. So I don't see anything there. You're typing something. I'll check it in a minute. I don't know what you're writing, but okay. So that is that, and that's motion streak. So out. Rewind this. And okay, so let's continue with what we're doing here. One thing that I didn't talk about last week, we ran out of time, is using textures for emission. And it's something that is definitely going to help. I know that I stopped when I was talking about the engine, the emitter itself, okay? And I just want to see, these are my exact values that I had. One thing that I probably, okay, so I already talked about the turbulence, okay? Turbulence is very, very important for this kind of stuff. And it's better, try to avoid, okay, by all means, avoid using force fields with I'm not saying don't use them at all, but if you can avoid it, don't use Maya fields itself with these things. So, meaning that it's better to use a turbulence that is built in the emitter than to having to constrain a turbulence field next to the emitter to get the same result, right? It's cheaper this way, more precise. So turbulence is going to be a big help. I'm going to turn my motion streak on this one. I guess I turned it off for the other example, probably. But it should be on. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about this part here. Actually, I turned off the density. I'm going to put that back the way it's supposed to be. I'm just going to bring things back to normal here. Okay, so, well, you know what? I'm going to start talking about rendering, because the thing is, with these fluids, okay, or I think with any fluid simulation, the earlier you can start doing test renders, the better. It will, even if you know that you're going to be up-resing your fluid later on and it's going to change the look and it's going to look much better, I think it's good to start early to taking quick snapshots of what's actually happening. So I'm going to be starting to talk a little about rendering, and we're going to have to modify the simulation at the same time. So I think that will make more sense. I'm going to let this, we'll see what happens, Claude, about this thing going in an angle like that later. But I think it has to do with actually probably even the turbulence. Let's try it. Let's turn the turbulence off, and let's see, because that's definitely a force that is pushing it to the side. So no, it seems like it's still doing it, but not as much as before. Let me just take a quick look at this. No, it's still going in a bit of a weird angle. So, and I guess I don't know I think you said that you tried increasing those values a lot. So if I were to try, what happens if you go nuts or something strong like this? Yeah, so it still feels a bit off, huh? That's a bit weird. Well, I'll come up with this and we'll figure it out why it's doing this. Because yeah, it's a bit crooked. Well, we'll figure it out. It looks like, I thought it could have been the actual value for the turbulence, but no. I'm going to see now what my swirl is doing as well. Remember, you can always check the velocities inside your container by going into display and just turning that on and see. Well, this is a good indication, right? So it looks like, actually from the engine itself, you can skip a bit more if you want. Yeah, it looks like from the engine, everything is just being pushed on the Z-axis. Okay, well, we'll go and see why that's happening. In the meantime, okay, so like I was saying, I think it's better to start rendering a few snapshots first, and then let's start talking about a few of the attributes. You're going to probably be rendering this shot with Mentor Ray, okay? So one key element of volumetric elements like this is the ability of them to self-shadow. That's what's going to give you the sense of thickness, okay? So self-shadowing is important. So your shadows, okay, my point with shadows are key. If you're using Mentor Ray, your shadows is going to be, for your lights, they're going to have to be ray trace shadows, okay? That is the way Mentor Ray will work. If you're using RenderMan, then you can use deep shadows, okay, which will give you a slightly different result. You know, one is better than the other, doesn't matter. Quick snapshot, let's see what we're doing here. Let me open my render view. So if you're at home, Mentor Ray probably is the guy. And I have RenderMan myself here, but I want to try to avoid using it because not everybody has that. And let's see what's coming through. Of course, it's rendering the perspective view. Let me switch that right to the right camera. Okay. Actually, let me just grab the left side first just to start to move a bit quick. The IPR, I think the IPR works. We'll try it now, but I think it works fine with the Mentor Ray. So you can do changes of your container quickly and start to get some results. All right, but this is not half bad. Let me just actually render the whole thing as a starting point. Let's see how long it takes. It should be quick. So in the meantime, well, this is rendering. So remember, your lights should be using ray trace shadows if you're using Mentor Ray. And obviously, it is done automatically for you, but you should be rendering, you should enable ray tracing, of course. It should be done for you automatically. As soon as you switch the shadow to ray trace shadows, at least ray tracing should turn on. But if you find something funny, there's no shadows, and you are certain that they should be, turn that thing on. Make sure that it's on. I really dig this part. This looks awesome down here. And, you know, we haven't, of course, we have this massive blob over here due to low resolution, high, you know, low dissipation. We're going to get to that, but you know, it's a good idea to start to get this sense of, okay, well, this is what this thing is looking like at the moment. There are ways, okay, I want you to train with me on this and get used to try to get as much as you can, the detail, okay, as much detail as you can with the fluid simulation itself before you go in and get help from other techniques, okay, or other sections, okay. The fluid itself has the ability to be textured by a noise or something, okay, to help you give that extra push. Or I had some students that went in on week 1 or 2 and they started using wavelet turbulence to up the resolution of the fluids. That's not really the way to work. Okay, so I mean, not at least while you're training. While you're training, I want you to suffer this one as much as possible and try to squeeze every inch of detail that you can get out of the container. And then, when you get all these extra tools that every studio has, which are different from place to place, then it's just your life will be a lot easier. Okay, than you getting used to. I had a student, like I said, on level, I think on week 1 or week 2, went in and put a wavelet turbulence and then out. Yeah. But what happens if you don't have wavelet turbulence at the studio? Then you don't know how to squeeze the detail out of it, right? So it's something that I think you should stress. Okay, in these 12 weeks. Another thing I should mention: we're not going to be using resizable containers at all ourselves. Resizable containers are a great concept, but it just ends right there. And we're going to see the reason later. But resizable containers are a big, massive issue when you're working in real production. At home, it could be fine. The moment you introduce a render farm, you introduce caching or proprietary formats of caching fluid simulations, the whole concept of resizable containers just fails miserably. So I don't want to see any resizable containers in these courses, okay? Unless, I mean, we'll cover it for like 5 minutes and that's it, because I don't really, for now, it doesn't work. I don't want you to be disappointed later again. So anyway, back to the topic. I'm sorry, I went off the track there. Okay, this is working. There are shadows definitely happening. It's not obviously not enough detail. We're a bit low res, but this is working okay. If you go back down on your fluid, okay, under the textures, the lighting tab, make sure the self shadow is on. And then you have the ability, if you want to force and get a real read for what the shadows are doing, you can always increase your shadow opacity like crazy, like the value of 2, and try again. It takes 40 seconds, so it's a bit too long for this class, but at some point, these renders, by the way, be prepared, okay, because these renders, when you're rendering full resolution, okay, you render HD for your reel and you're rendering a high resolution fluid, these things are going to sit there for a while. So try to always do test renders yourself quickly. I'm going to show you how to play with the quality of the render without sacrificing too much of the fluid itself. But let those things run there overnight, okay? So you don't feel the pain of having to look at the computer all day going through this thing. Because a render of this shot could take easily a day, okay, or 2 days rendering. Depends on your machine, but which is nothing, okay? Because I'm training you for production. I'm training you for a big studio job, so it's nothing. If you tell me that a render for a fluid takes, this shot is 240 frames. If it takes an hour a frame at home, it's 240 hours, right? So then you're fucked. So you're gonna need 10 days to render this, and it sounds like it's a lot. But if you're in a studio with a render farm with 240 processors, in 1 hour you get your shot done, and that's considered low res probably. So don't worry, okay? It takes time. We have time to do these things, and I expect you to start rendering your final versions of this in probably 3 weeks time, okay? So we're still gonna mess with this for a while, and then you start rendering your shot. But anyway, I think I saved the previous picture for comparison. This is with a shadow opacity of 0.5, shadow opacity of 2. So it gets magnified, so at least you can read. This is for me, I go so high on this value just for debugging. So I said, okay, well definitely it works. This is the geometry of my engine, which is being, it's being held out, okay? So you can see that I'm using hold. This is level 2, so I'm expecting you to know how to do a holdout on a piece of geometry. If not, I will raise your hand here, and because you're live, you get the right to do it. But if not, just go back to the courses from Igor, or go back to my level 1 courses, and I quickly show you there on those recordings how to do these things. But if you guys on the live course right now with me here, you don't know how to do this, please ask me. But this is the way to go, right? You want to render your ship on a separate layer, okay, on a separate pass on its own, render it, okay, and you have that taken care of, done. And then you'll be comping this in any software of your liking. Most likely will be Nuke for most of you, I guess. You'll be comping your fluids on top of your renders for the ship. So, okay, this is definitely working. So let's go ahead and keep moving. Okay, so I need to solve a couple of things. I was trying to also tell you guys and then the community, okay, those of you watching the recording, that try to stick to a shot that is similar to this. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Those of you on the FTP, access to the FTP, the content supporter thing, I put this scene file there, and I see that some of you have downloaded already. So if not, if you didn't know, go into the FTP and you will find the scene file with the animation of the ship in there. So you can practice with this. All right, so the reason I'm asking to do something similar is because I would like to see dust coming towards the camera, because that is going to be a rendering challenge. So if you do something with a different angle and the dust never comes in, or the dust is doing something different, shooting to the right, yeah, it's fine, okay, but it's not as complicated, as challenging as what I'm having in mind, which is letting this dust come all the way towards the camera. So, all right, let me take a quick peek and see what's going on here then. So we will need a lot of stuff. As far as from my render, what do I get from here? Well, let me take a look. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, so let me just look at the alpha channel, and I can see that the opacity of my fluid over here is very thick. Okay, so meaning that the amount of density that I have is probably too much, or it will be just enough. So it's something that is a bit of a decision. You can modify things on a rendering level. That's something that I want also to mention before we keep going on anything here. Is the fluids think of fluids of 2 separate modules, okay? The simulation module is one thing, and the rendering section of that is a completely different thing. And they don't really have anything to do, well, the rendering doesn't have much to do with the simulation module itself. What I'm trying to say with this is that I'm rendering this fluid and it looks very dense, okay? But that doesn't mean that if you really need to emit more density to make your simulation behave different, is a problem because it renders this way. No. We have a rendering module that we can go ahead and remap attributes of all kind and mess with those situations in a separate way. So you can make a simulation for dust, render like fire, or vice versa. It doesn't matter, because that's just mapping information. So the simulation for me is the most important part of this. And then we're going to make it look interesting with the rendering. So a render like that, you will see this and you say, well, I cannot emit any more density. That's not really the case. You can. We're just going to play with that later. I'm going to show you. Let me just quickly take a peek at what my attributes for the actual container, the density are first, because that's always the most important part. Density scale. I saw a note on the community, the suggestion of messing with the density scale to change the look of a render. That is the look of a render, yes. The look of your simulation, no. I would never mess with the density scale myself. I would never change it from 0.5. Because I can achieve, if I need more transparency on my render, I will do it on the proper attributes for rendering, which I'll show you in a minute. And if I need less density on the mirror itself, I will lower it there. So here is just a number that you could probably move a little bit to the right and to the left. It's not changing, really, the simulation. I don't have more density there, honestly. It's just a representation of what the actual value will do. So yes, you could use it a little, but it's not the way you should solve a problem, okay, with too much or too little density. I think my buoyancy is okay. We could modify that, but again, because I'm going to increase my resolution, this is going to amplify itself. Dissipation, I think I'm a bit low on it, although it's a good thing that I'm getting density heading this way. But I'm thinking that probably I need to dissipate a bit more, but I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking that I need 3 more engines in here, so the amount of density will be massive. And we're also going to have to do now some density for the ground itself. So, I'll keep the mental note for this in a minute. Diffusion, I don't like it, okay? Because diffusion is going to take the density and expand it too much. We're going to lose, even though it's low res, we have some detail going on in here already. We're going to lose too much of it if we start diffusing this thing. So I think for the attributes that I have in setup here, this is working fine. For the velocity, I don't have any swirl, and that is extremely important. I think I didn't get to this point last class. All the simulations will need swirl, and I think I mentioned that before. The swirl gets amplified, or the lower values of swirl. Okay, a swirl of 4, for example, will be stronger on a container that has less resolution. So the more voxels, the higher your swirl needs to be in order to keep up that, and it's just because the way it works is just if you have a big voxel, okay, the swirl happens in the voxel, okay. I think they call it vorticles in Houdini. It's the same kind of idea where you have a big voxel and the swirl happens inside that. So if the voxel is massive, the rotation as you get inside there, the swirl, okay, the eddy, will be a lot more noticeable than on a smaller one. So you will have to crank up the swirl when you get. And how far do you go? I can tell you for a shot like this, don't be surprised if you end up using values of 16 or 20, okay, things like that high, okay, so it's not a problem. For this, I'm going to crank up already my swirl to a value of 6, just to begin. I don't want to noise off my velocity. There's not really a need for that. I just take the vectors and apply some noise to it, which is a bit mushy. Turbulence, it is important. It's different, okay, from the turbulence of the emitter. The turbulence of the emitter just messes with the density, okay? It's just like putting like a noise function almost on that. Where here is just the overall turbulence on the entire environment. So I'm going to put a little bit of that. Value of 0.1. I don't have temperature or fuel, and I don't think you need it. I think I read also in the community someone is using temperature, and that was a suggestion that it was given, by Diamond, and it's something that we can do later, but temperature on this one is not really necessary. So you're not going to get much of a benefit of that. I'll show you real applications of emitting just velocity or just temperature a bit later. No, not in this example. That's just going to complicate things for you. Aside of that, I think, we have the shading tab, which I think, we're going to cover it later, okay? But this is what I'm talking about when I say the rendering module, okay? The shading tab. Here's where you can remap things and make them look like completely different, like blue fire, green fire, okay? So purple dust, all that stuff happens in here. But we're going to deal with that later. The shading quality, it is something good. The higher this number, the more... the better it will look, right? The more quality you're applying to this render. So is this with a shading quality of 1, but you could speed this up by, for example, putting that to 0.5. This took 41 seconds. Let me just make sure that I'm rendering the same frame. And actually, let's save this one. So camera A. I'm just resting my voice while this render goes through, but I'm just I don't like those big silences. They feel too long. But let's see. This is coming through, and it took 18 seconds. Yeah. So that's what I was saying earlier. That this is one way to quickly, kind of cut in half probably the render time for your test without having to sacrifice too much of the resolution. Okay. Eventually, once you practice this enough with me, then you will get to a point where you just do your simulation attributes and you hit render and you go to sleep without play blasting. It doesn't matter. If it's time to go, you time to go. You try to time yourself to get to a point where you can hit render, go to sleep, wake up in the morning, you have a fully rendered sequence that you can analyze, make changes again, hit render, go to work, come back after work is done. And you get two versions without having to play blast, sitting there waiting, doing too many test renders. You do a few of these yourself, but you kind of eventually you will know what it is that needs to be changed. But the quality value is definitely interesting. You see, it cut my time in less than half. So keep an eye on that one. Okay. Quality values for final versions, okay, or for high resolution versions, you will probably go to values of 2, 3, maybe even 4. Okay. It's not a magic number. It's going to save everything, but it's going to help you a little. It's going to just make things a bit smoother. Texturing of fluids, we're going to see it later. Because this is the part that I was saying earlier that is something that should be left at the very, very end. Okay, this is icing, the cherry at the top. I want you to squeeze the detail out of the simulation yourself. So I think that covers pretty much everything here. The lighting tab, I asked you to turn self shadow on, and I told you that if you have the opacity, if you want to test it, by default number is 0.5, but if you want to test your shadows are working, crank that number up. But it doesn't have to be only for testing if you want to really increase the effect of your shadows, okay? The self-shadowing. So that's a pretty good thing. The diffusion is going to soften your shadow, which probably you wouldn't want too much. You want to try to stay as sharp as possible to give the sense of detail. And this fluid comes with an ambient light, which is not actually that bad. Right now it's turned off. Let me show you. So let's say that this is a planet that is not blue like this. It's just going to make something a bit more easier to spot. Let's say a bit orangey looking dirt. I'm going to save my image. Okay, I'm rendering the same frame. And my quality, I think I left it at 1, but I'm going to double check that bit. Quality at 0.5, perfect. So that's good. It's going to be a fast render. And I'm going to turn on my ambient brightness to a value of 1, which is a lot. And that's just an overall ambient light around everything. That is just going to do this. I went obviously on purpose too far to a value of 1, but imagine an environment around the whole thing. So we usually use this to lighten up like a fill light, okay, to bring up a little bit of the things too dark, okay, and kind of give ourselves a little bit of a sense of an environment going on in here. So a value of 1 you can already saw. Actually, I want to show you what the IPR can do too. So I'm going to grab a section, and hopefully I don't put my foot in my mouth with this, but it should work fine. Yeah. Okay, so that's the IPR working. I'm going to make a change on this light, okay, to a value of 0.3. And if I'm not mistaken, it should go ahead and do it for you. So it's pretty cool to test all the shading attributes and things like that. We're going to do it in a minute. So IPR works pretty well for this, and I kind of like that. It works really well. So there you go. That's the ambient light. Probably don't use it too strong, because if you go too high, then it will just take away all your shadows. It eats all your detail. You can see that a value of 0.3 is already too much. So, but it does an interesting job, especially when you start mixing this. If you match this color, of course, with the overall color of your environment, it's like an overall tint on everything, which is something that is pretty neat to put. Perfect. So let's go ahead and talk about surface emission. And I'm going to use it for the ground, actually. I know that some of you starting to try that already, okay? It's not like I want to stay clear of the emitter from the engine, but I think whatever I'm going to do on the ground, you can try it on the engine, and it will help a little bit too. Because the problem with the engine right now, one of the problems that I see, is that the emission of density is solid around the entire thing. I want to randomize that a little bit. So yes, the engines will take, for example, if I grab to my engine emitter, you can actually plug a texture directly onto the emission. And let's go ahead and try that first time. I was going to use a piece of geometry, okay, in the middle, but I think let's go ahead and map a texture to this guy. The one that is most recommended, that you see me using every week, probably is the noise. That works really well. Billow, I stay clear of that one. Okay, it's too slow. Purling noise is the way. And for this, okay, for fluids, it happens to particles a lot, but for fluids, it's even more than that's the most important thing. Make these images very sharp, crunchy. Okay, very very contrasty. Because fluids are fluffy and soft by default. Okay, they have it's very hard to get these things to have a lot of definition. So if you make a soft emitter, okay, if I go in and I keep it like this, my texture. Hopefully you can see it here clearly, but this is too soft for me. So if it's a soft texture, it's gonna translate into a soft emission. It's gonna be really hard to read it. So you really want to make this very sharp, okay, very contrasty. So make sure that your blacks are really black, your white is really white. Crunch this thing up, because that is the only way to see any result going on in here. For the sake of this example, I'm going to lower the frequency so we get real definition. You will see what it's actually going to do now. Basically, it multiplies. This texture will multiply your rate, so you're going to end up with less density, of course, but hopefully you can see it. You can see it here already. Well, you see what I mean? Like, I'm using a crunchy image, but it's a low resolution. I'm going to give my container a tiny bit more voxels. Another thing you can do for testing, I don't know, I've seen some people do it, but I'm not too big of a fan, is you could reduce the size in X for now, if you're playing just with this part, and then bring it back. I don't know, I think I can live without it for now. Okay, so, well, I can see the result because I'm, have no compression going on. You should try this at home, but definitely this texture works. You can always push it, make it, or do a checker or something a bit more noticeable, but this will definitely work. And like I said, the value of density will multiply the texture itself. So you still have control over the amount of, if it's not enough, just crank it up. But like any texture, okay, I want to move this texture a little so it changes every frame. But again, the same problem, okay? If you never move textures that relate to fluid emission too fast, because again, they blend too much. It's gonna blend and you're not gonna see anything. You can barely see anything, we have such a low frequency. I was gonna try a frequency of 1, maybe like this you can see. Okay, let's see. Yeah, well, okay, maybe we got lucky on this one. There you go. You can kind of see the pattern and use your imagination, but it does. Okay, white is 1, okay, so you get like a little long, looks like Italy here, and then Spain and Portugal, so there you go. So there looks like a map, right? So this is matching our texture, so it does work. But you can see that if I go too high on frequency, it might as well just get rid of it because you don't see anything. I know that a frequency of 3 will work, and it's just to break up a little bit of that solid, thick, thing that we have going on here. And by breaking the density, okay, just by doing that on its own, it's going to translate into better self-shadowing, okay? Because if you have a big cone of density straight going down, that will shade like a cone. Sorry, not like a cone, like a cylinder, right? So it will have a very soft, round look. The moment you start introducing gaps, okay, and turbulence in there, then you have pockets of density on top of another one, and those guys can self-shadow, and that's what's going to give you much better results. You will see now, even though I added 50 pixels, 50 voxels, okay, to my base resolution, the result will be better because this texture is working now. But I was saying I want to move this texture around a little, but don't move it too quickly, because all the work that you have done with the frequency and all will just go away. So maybe I'm going to move this, and I'm going to say probably time divided by 2. Not that, sorry. I'll just make this a bit bigger for you guys. But it's very simple expression. Just that. Something just to give it a little bit of a change frame by frame. I'm not going to see it. I know it's there. So that will definitely work. So that's how you can then plug textures, okay, to the emission. Let's say later on, okay, it's going to happen later, but I'm going to just warn you right ahead. Let's say that I want to use the same texture let's say that I have heat or temperature on this simulation. Or you make a different texture yourself, okay, in the hypershade, and you want to plug that in. Yes, you can copy this and paste it. But make sure you hit enter. If you don't hit enter, that connection is not going to get made. Once you hit enter, you make sure that you have that. It's just because I've seen people do it before, and they don't hit enter, and then they realize that it's not working after a while. But heat is not happening, so we'll deal with that later. This is done. You can you could type, okay, the name of the texture if you make another one, and just make sure you just hit enter. Okay, perfect. Now let's go ahead and do well, let's do another render probably first, because emission of fluids from a texture from a ground plane, a piece of geometry using textures is very similar to particles. That's why another reason I teach fluids second, because you already know how to do that. So I can just quickly show you, but there's not much there to talk about. There are better things to talk about. Let's see how this is going. I still see the issue with the angle thing, Claude, so yeah, we need to figure that out. But look, this is already looking a lot nicer. I'm going to take a quick snap of what's happening back there. And again, we just added 50 voxels to the base resolution, not too much, honestly, but you know, it's already working. I think I read on the community as well, someone, I think it was you, Keith, probably, you're having issues with banding and your renders and things like that. It probably looks like that, like this, okay? This is just low quality resolution of my render. This will go away once you bump up the shading quality, okay? So also, well, obviously you will have to crank up some of the settings on Mentor Ray, okay? So the quality of my render probably is, well, it is set to production, so not too bad. But things like filtering and all will be, you know, this will go away once we crank up the detail. Okay, so that's going in there, but you can see now there's better shadowing, okay, better, at least contrast on the image than before. I'm gonna let this run for a few seconds, and I'm gonna take a peek of what's happening in the classroom in case there's any questions in here. Okay, so let's see. Then this with substeps are to solve any issues with the problem with the empty frame. Okay, so you're asking me about the motion streak, and yes, if the motion streak on its own is not enough to solve that issue, you saw the example I showed you where it was better, but it wasn't perfect yet. Then the next thing you have is to use substeps, which I try to avoid using as much as possible, but hey, sometimes it's inevitable. So substeps plus motion streak equals then smooth trail, but also equals to longer simulations, and you know, but it's something you have to do. Claude, do you use particles instead of fluids? Yeah, Claude, I think when you asked the question, you mentioned when you're emitting the particles, but I'm guessing you said you mean you emit the fluid. You're emitting fluids. Yeah, exactly. Use fluid. It's just I read it that way, but I thought I should probably clear that. Yeah, you're emitting fluids. Later, okay, we'll definitely use particles as source of fluids. Okay, that's going to come, and I saw some of you are taking multiple courses. I think, Claude, that's the case for you. You must be doing, I think you're doing for the level 3, for the master class, you're using already that. So this can be used to slow motion. No. Substeps, no, cannot be used to slow motion, not really. Substeps, all it does is evaluates subframes. It's not really slow motion. You can cache a fluid and then later modify the cache, and I'll show you guys that, not today, but later. When you cache a fluid, you get a cache file that you can then manipulate and scale it down or up or down to speed it up or slow it. So that could be a way to do slow motion. There's no such, yeah, it's not really, that substeps is not going to do that. It's not like frames per second or something like that. It's just the evaluation of the solver. Okay, so let me jump back. You guys keep doing what you're doing there. That's fine. You keep typing the questions. Let me find my Maya that I lost. Okay, perfect. Okay. I'm going to hide this and see Maya's behind me. Oh, come on. It went all the way already. I was hoping to get it into, catch it into a frame that it was better. Well, I'll deal with this in a minute, because I don't think I'm too far on this engine. Aside from this issue, the kind of crooked emission that is happening to me too, so it's not just you, Claude, which I'm not 100% sure why it's happening yet, and I'm not going to worry about it until the last second. I'm going to keep moving forward, but I don't think there's too much more I'm going to be doing to this emitter yet, to this engine. I think for now, probably I will emit more resolution, but I'm getting some self-shadowing already on the viewport here that it looks fine. So the engine itself, I think I'm kind of close to be done with it. So I'm gonna do a little bit something on the ground, okay? The idea behind the ground is to help us with the interaction, because just to expect this engine to be able to emit density to a way that is gonna collide, hit the bottom of the container and come towards the camera is a lot to ask for just this part of the simulation. So to help us get to that sense in a more controllable way, we're gonna add another emitter to the simulation that is gonna work on the ground only, okay? And it's gonna help us kind of give the sense that this ship is advancing as well. So we're gonna be emitting the dust probably with a ramp or something that is gonna go along with the ship to kind of give us a bit of an idea. So for that, I'm just going to try to get my Maya menu back somehow. So let me close this. Okay, so we're back. I'm going to create a polyplane, just normal. Okay, so I'm gonna probably do it from the top view so we can do this faster. Scale that guy. Oh, I need to probably show polygons, otherwise I won't see it. Yeah. All right, so here it is. I don't want to spend too much time doing this boring stuff that you can do better in your home, but place it there. So try to place it, it can be a little bit bigger, it's not a problem. Something that kind of lives inside the whole area there. Perfect. I'm going to hide this terrain. Hopefully I made a layer already for it. Yeah. Great. Okay. I'm going to turn off the emission of the engine, okay, from this container by just disconnecting that from the dynamic relationships, so I can focus on the ground. Okay. And I'm going to grab my ground plane, shift select my fluid, fluid effects, added content, emit from object, go to the options, surface. Okay, we're going to call this ground dust. Well, I can leave everything at default and then change it after. Here we go. And here's my ground dust. The actual emitter itself, it looks exactly the same as the others. So not too much here to talk, nothing to actually talk about new. The only thing is, it's a similar advice that I give my guys on level 1, is that it's best to apply the texture that you're going to be using. Apply it to the polygon itself, just so you have some way to visualize what's actually happening here. So I'm just going to make myself a Lambert, and I'm also going to make, first I'm going to make a ramp. Okay, just I think that'll be a good way to drive this thing. So I'll make myself a ramp and drop it onto the color, and then drop that material on top of this and go to shaded mode. And here's my ramp, just so I can quickly see where the direction of this thing should be. So it should be in U. Okay. And then you guys are going to animate this by hand nicely, okay? Much better than me. You probably will be doing black in here, black on this one as well. And then this one for now, okay, just for the sake of it, we're going to make it white. Okay, and then I'm going to animate this thing so it goes along with the ship. That's kind of my purpose here. Well, that's a bit further back, but as the ship moves forward, then you're going to be animating this to kind of go, well, probably you make it bigger and bigger, the white. Okay, so you leave the dust back there. You do a nice animation at home. Go ahead and probably, you wouldn't want to have the same strength here that you had at the very beginning. It's to give a sense of the ship is going to pass to that point. So you will leave some emission of dust back there. But you will end up animating towards the end of the shot when the ship has landed. You will probably animate this thing to be a bit closer, and also animate it off, turn the emitters off. Don't leave the dust kicking up the entire time. So I'm just going to leave it big and you do the animation yourself. But then this texture is the texture that I want to assign onto my engine. So I'm going in there, and like I was saying before, you could grab it from the textures panel, okay, my ramp, and then just drop that guy in there. But you see, just by dropping doesn't really register yet. So you could go away and do other things, and I don't think it will take it. Well, it did take it, but just hit enter. Just save yourself the headache later. Just hit enter and you'll be fine. So that texture has been applied, okay? And let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening. Remember, the geometry has to be inside the container, otherwise it won't work. So I'm gonna make sure that that is true. So my container is still active, right? I don't think I turned it off. No, I'm gonna hit play, and I don't think I'm gonna get much. I'm gonna go to, sorry, pause that. Just quickly, I'm trying to. So if you don't get any emission, it's just because, well, there's a couple of things. First, check that this thing is inside the container. I don't know, I'm pushing it, it's too close to the edge. I'm gonna move that up and keep it there. That's fine for me. That will already help with the emission, okay? But I also know that the value for sorry, I got a bit of a brain freeze in here. I was going to say the fluid drop-off will be too high, but it's not. Actually, my density is set to 0, so of course I'm not going to get anything. Let's put a value of 3 and just make sure. Okay, perfect. So we're getting something, okay? We need to adjust but you see that, well, I hope you can see the ramp actually works. So I'm going to switch from 5 to 6. Okay, so it does work. Okay, adjust the ramp, and obviously I wouldn't leave it white in here. I will probably take this and plug myself. You could try to dump the same noise, but no, let's just make a new one. Plug a noise in there, purling noise. And I'm gonna rewind so I can see my texture. Okay, this could be fine, okay? You're gonna put a little expression again. And the idea, okay, for this is you're not going to do a separate fluid sim on its own. You're going to mix these two fluids together. You don't want to really separate those. I want interaction between those two elements. They're all part of the same world, so just keep an eye on that. This one probably I will increase my frequency a little bit more, and you can do the rest much better. But yes, the amplitude should be big. Perfect. Okay, so go to 5. Actually, I don't need to see this guy. He's going to hide it. And let's see what we get. If you really want to, get rid of the edges here, just take this ramp and make sure that, you can use a better interpolation, or just drag this thing closer. Meaning interpolation, I probably wouldn't use any interpolation, but there we go. So it does definitely work for you. So just by animating the ramp along with your ship, then you will have this kind of stuff. Let's look at it through the camera. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so this is working. You have to, the dynamics are the same, okay? So any buoyancy is going to apply for this. The dissipation is going to also apply for this. And it's a matter of now, okay, well, this is fine. And you see, this is going to drive as well how much dissipation we should be using on the engine. But I want a lot of density on this shot, so we should be in good shape for later. So I'm going to grab that and turn my engine back on. And the last thing I'm going to show you before we go is, sorry, emitter. Perfect. So I get my two things. Is the ability of these fluids to mix color, okay? Because what I'm thinking is the reason behind that is that it would be cool to have like the ground being made of dirt or whatever, like more brownish color, but the steam or the turbulence coming out of the engine to be a slightly different color, thinking that, well, this thing is sucking the air out of the atmosphere, which is not that dusty yet, and it's mixing with the dust on the ground, and it's just the color will be different. It will look pretty interesting. Let's see what's happening in here. Very cool. So this is the kind of stuff I love, you see. So you're getting a lot of the energy which is pushing this density out of the ground. Now, one thing that I can notice, hopefully you do too, is that the ground plane, the emitter from the ground, is always emitting fluid. So I don't know. So you push it nicely with with this engine, and then more dust keeps coming back. See if it works for you. Okay, if you want to give a stronger statement. Because I know if you're blowing the dust out of the region, at some point it will be no more dust, unless it's like a desert or something. But if it's just a dusty ground, you just blow it out. At some point, there will be nothing left. So probably ramp up or down the emission of the ground plane. So I don't know. I see this, and I was hoping to get a bit more of an empty space over here because all that dust has been kicked. But aside that, I'm very bright on this, and I'm gonna lower my ambient light to be able to read this a bit better. So I'm gonna take that out completely, and I'm gonna increase my shadow opacity. So by the way, it works on the viewport, as you can see. So it's not just rendering. So sometimes, you can spend quite some time in here playing and having fun, and then moving on to the rendering later. So now I can put a little bit of this. Exactly. So work on this part, okay? This is an interesting element. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the mixing of color, okay? And then I think that will get you. And then we'll do the other engines. Claude, I don't know, and I'll be completely honest. I've done Fluids for so many years, and I don't know why this thing is crooked. I'm gonna find out why, and I'm gonna let you guys know in the community. I'm not sure. It's a bit weird to me because there's nothing there. A worst case scenario, honestly, just rotate the thing and make it look straight. I don't know. I'll try to find out why it is doing it, but don't worry too much about it. Okay, so mixing of color. So the emitter itself has the ability to pump out a color channel, and we usually it's disabled for now. You can see the emit fluid color is turned off. The thing is, it's the same with particles. Remember the emitters that when we're doing the galaxies on level 1, when the emitter can give color, but the particle have to be ready to take the color and use it. It's the same thing with fluids. If the fluid container itself, it has a color attribute. So if you go to the very top, you can go ahead and say the color method right now is using only the shading color. So that means that when we deal with this later, going here, you have a color value. That's why my fluid is white. Yeah, it looks brownish because my ambient light is brownish, but the actual fluid with no lights is white. It's because of that. But you can actually simulate this thing, and it will mix colors. So you can say the color method, go ahead and set it to, for example, if it's a static grid, you know what I kind of mentioned what it will do, but there's no simulation, it's just the color of a ramp. But if you use a dynamic grid, then it will be simulated. So what I'm going to do is, now that this is turned on, then you can go into your engine and activate color. One thing I want to show you, if you forget to turn it on, don't worry, because Maya will do it for you. If you grab this and you activate fluid color, he will tell you, in order to emit color, you want to set this to dynamic, and I appreciate the message, so thank you. That's fine. And I'm going to make the engine, this is the engine color, I'm going to make it white. Oh, well, let's be drastic. Let's make it red and then make the other one green from the ground. So emit fluid color is already activated. I don't need motion streak in here because this thing is not moving, so. And let's make this one green. And you will see now that because the color is simulated, means that those densities are going to mix and the color is going to change. So let's roll. Let's see. So you can see green fluid, red fluid, and when they mix, they will have a color. Let's just let it run a little bit. I guess you will probably, you wouldn't be doing red and green, but, something a bit more dusty on the ground. Depends on the textures you're going to be using. Let me pause this and get closer so you can see what's going on. Yeah. Well, I'm just going to stay within a reasonable distance. You will see that they start mixing. It's already looking purpley. I was going to say that, yeah, depending on the texture you're using on the ground, obviously color it similar way so it feels more integrated. But try to do something different, a bit more white on the engine itself, and it will look interesting. You can see that, hopefully you can see that these things are mixing. The color is mixing. It's probably obviously more ground dust than engine dust. So to force this, we can just pump a bit more density. Yes? No? Yes, that's fine. Sorry, that's just my wife. Okay, so this is going through, and now that we have a bit of a better distribution between the engine and the ground, you will probably get a better change in color. Okay. If you grab white and black, and you will easily see gray. Okay, so this is just a matter of the colors that I chose. I thought it was going to be easier to show you, but yeah, they definitely will mix. So try this. And I think with this, it will be a good point to get some questions from you guys, and then I can jump into my next class. So could it be that the container is rotated like so? No, not really. The rotation of the container has nothing, no, it wouldn't affect that. Definitely not. Let me, now that you say that, that's definitely not, but let me just quickly see something from the top view about the whole direction of things. So, no. It looks like there's something pushing it on the Z axis a little bit. But I don't really, no, it's not that. Definitely not, because this will only happen if you cache your fluid and then move the container or something. Yes, of course the density will change, but that's definitely not what is happening. Okay, I know what is happening. I know what it is. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so stupid. It's because I have the boundaries on the left side closed. Okay, so probably what's happening here is there might be some velocities bouncing and then coming back in. The velocity is not really escaping. That could be the case. We can try. Well, actually, let's try opening everything but the floor. So let's leave that there. Let's leave that here. I think that could be the situation. It's just there's some velocity shooting on that side. Maybe I'm wrong, but definitely. Oh, it's even more pronounced now. So let's see. Yeah, it's a bit weird. It's almost like the vector of the maybe it's the constraint on the engine, that is messing with the rotation. So the actual rotation of this emitter itself is not really the axis is looking this way, but it has another rotation because of the. I think I constrained that one to the ship. So yeah, I will look into this, and if you guys find it first, please share it with everybody. But again, at the moment, I thought it could be this because you got some velocities bouncing off. I've seen that stuff happen before, but it's not. So I'm gonna put that back the way it was, which is on the X. On the X was the positive X, and this one was the positive Z. So we'll figure that out. I will look into it. But yeah, if you guys see it first, please share it. But for now, there's a lot of other things we can be doing. Any questions, guys, before we head out? Remember, next Saturday we're off, okay? So keep going. I don't think I have the Maya. That's I don't know, Inge, but if you email me separately because that's a separate thing, not from this course. Excellent. So Dave, you're good. Daryl, everybody. So Claude, everybody's okay. Dave, just please type something on the window to make sure you're good.
Can I just share my screen with you for like 2 minutes and show you?
Is this Claude or Dave? This is Claude. Sorry, you guys have the voices similar. Let me stop sharing mine. And let's try to get yours. So Ellie, you're good. Darius, you're good. Perfect. Ingyon, I mean, if you're getting the invites for this class, you should be getting the invites for the master class if you are enrolled to it. But I've seen you before on the master class, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's happening. I'll double check, but you should be fine on the master class. Claude, I sent you the request to share your screen, but I think you didn't accept it, so I'll send you another one. What I will do for now is I think I'll pause the recording and I'll stop the recording actually. So the ones watching this, thank you, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Okay, thanks.